Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sad Tales, where we dive into the heart-wrenching stories that remind us of the fragility of life. Today, we uncover a deeply emotional story of ambition, brilliance, and a life taken far too soon. This is the tale of Annie Lee, a young woman who had everything to look forward to: academic success, a promising career, and a wedding just days away. But fate had a different, darker plan. Prepare yourselves for a story of betrayal and tragedy that left an indelible mark on her family, friends, and everyone who knew her. Join us as we explore the events that led to the devastating loss of a bright soul whose dreams were cruelly extinguished. Annie Marie Lee was born on July 3, 1985, in San Jose, California, into a family of Vietnamese heritage. Annie Lee was an exceptionally bright and ambitious student with a passion for science and research. She demonstrated academic excellence from a young age. She graduated as valedictorian from Union Mine High School, El Dorado, California. For her undergraduate studies, Annie earned a scholarship to the University of Rochester in New York, where she majored in cell and developmental biology. While at Rochester, she was a stellar student, winning a scholarship funded by the U.S. Department of Defense. This prestigious scholarship supported students in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM fields, and highlighted her immense potential. Annie's academic journey led her to pursue advanced studies at Yale University, one of the world's leading institutions. At Yale, she was a doctoral candidate in the Department of Pharmacology. Her research focused on the genetic influences in metabolic disorders like diabetes, showcasing her dedication to addressing complex and critical health issues. Annie's professors and colleagues regarded her as a rising star in the scientific community. Annie Lee was a brilliant and ambitious young woman, full of promise and hope. Annie was known for her vibrant personality and ability to connect with people. Friends and colleagues described her as approachable, kind-hearted, and highly motivated. Despite her demanding academic schedule, she found time to build strong relationships with her peers and mentors. Her fiancé, Jonathan Wadowski, was deeply in love with her, and the two were planning to get married just days before her untimely death. Jonathan Wadowski, Annie Lee's fiancé, described as intelligent and kind, Jonathan shared Annie's passion for academic excellence and had a deep appreciation for her drive and accomplishments. Jonathan's love for Annie was evident to those around them. Friends and family described their bond as genuine and supportive. The couple was in the midst of planning their wedding, just days after Annie's disappearance. They envisioned a future filled with love, partnership, and the pursuit of their academic and personal dreams. On September 8, 2009, Annie Lee, a 24-year-old Yale University graduate student, vanished without a trace. It was an ordinary day for Annie, who left her apartment around 10 a.m., heading to the Yale campus. She was last seen entering the university's Sterling Hall of Medicine, where she worked in a secure research laboratory on Amistad Street. Security footage captured Annie entering the building, but did not show her leaving. This discrepancy immediately raised alarm among her colleagues and university staff. Yale's security measures, which included ID card access and surveillance cameras, made it particularly concerning that there was no record of her departure. As hours passed, Annie missed critical appointments, including preparations for her upcoming wedding to Jonathan Wadowski. The couple was set to marry in just 5 days, and Annie's absence was completely out of character. Friends, family, and co-workers grew increasingly worried as they attempted to contact her, but received no response. The growing unease escalated into a full-scale investigation. New Haven authorities were notified, and search efforts began within the lab and its surroundings. Yale's campus community was shocked and terrified by the mysterious disappearance, as the high-security setting of the lab made it seem impossible for someone to vanish unnoticed. This was the beginning of an intense and heartbreaking search for answers about Annie's fate. Yale University's campus security contacted her parents, who were based in California, and informed them of the situation. Her parents, with heavy hearts, immediately made arrangements to travel to New Haven, where their daughter was last seen.
Yale is one of the city's oldest institutions and one of the largest, with more than 20,000 students, faculty, and staff, and its own police force. But the mysterious and troubling disappearance of doctoral student Annie Lee, with intensive media coverage of the investigation, is most unwelcome publicity. In a series of emails, university officials urged the Yale community not to speak to reporters who can be very aggressive in situations like this, where there are more questions than answers.
Instead of us thinking of an Ivy League institution and an excellent education, we're thinking about crime and safety.
4 days after Lee's disappearance, the university's police chief sought to reassure the Yale community. The concern reaches far beyond the New Haven campus.
His parents are calling in, checking, are you safe?
Today, authorities continue to work in the laboratory where Annie Lee was last seen. Authorities reportedly have discovered bloody clothing in the ceiling of the building. Published reports say the clothing is not Lee's. Investigators are also pouring through garbage at a Hartford waste facility looking for clues. The FBI continues to head up the investigation, numbering some 100 law enforcement authorities from Yale, the city of New Haven, and the state of Connecticut in an all-out effort to find Annie Lee.
5 days after Annie Lee's disappearance, on what should have been the joyous occasion of her wedding day, her family was left grappling with the unthinkable. Hope dwindled as they waited for news, and the search for answers took a chilling turn. Security footage from the Yale lab, where she was last seen, had already raised suspicions. But the investigation would soon unearth unsettling details that no one could have predicted. The investigation into Annie Lee's disappearance took a dramatic turn as police uncovered crucial evidence in the lab's basement. After the initial search of the Yale campus turned up no immediate answers, attention shifted to the building where Annie had last been seen, Sterling Hall of Medicine. A breakthrough came when investigators searched the building's basement and found Annie's body hidden within the walls of a small utility space due to the foul smell. This grisly discovery occurred just days after her disappearance and was pivotal in bringing the case into sharper focus. The investigation intensified as forensic science played a crucial role in solving the case. Police began by examining the keycard access records, which revealed that Raymond Clark III, a 24-year-old lab technician who worked with Annie, had been present in the building around the time of her disappearance. The evidence was alarming, as his keycard had been used at a time when Annie was missing. Clark's proximity to Annie, both in the days leading up to her death and on the day she disappeared, made him a prime suspect. Clark's background was also examined, revealing a history of disturbing behavior. Colleagues and friends described his possessive attitude, especially toward female colleagues, and his infatuation with Annie. These details helped build a case for his motive, which prosecutors later argued was a mixture of jealousy, rejection, and anger. Raymond Clark, who was a laboratory technician at Yale University, worked in the animal research department at Sterling Hall of Medicine. His primary responsibilities included caring for lab animals used for experiments, cleaning cages, and performing other maintenance tasks. Due to his task in the laboratory, he regularly interacted with Annie Lee, a graduate student conducting research for her PhD. It is suggested that Clark developed an obsession with her. Clark's feelings for Annie appear to have been unreciprocated, leading to growing jealousy, particularly when he learned she was getting married to her fiancé, Jonathan Wadowski. It's believed that his anger and obsession with Annie may have contributed to his violent actions. Forensic experts discovered Clark's DNA on Annie's clothing, which confirmed that he had been physically involved with her in a violent manner. This, combined with other forensic evidence found at the scene, solidified his involvement in the murder. His DNA was found not only on Annie's body, but also on items within the laboratory, providing an irrefutable connection between him and the crime. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that Raymond Clark was the primary suspect. Security footage, keycard access records, and DNA evidence found in the lab and on Annie's clothing directly linked him to the crime. As the investigation continued, police brought Clark in for questioning. Initially, he denied any involvement in Annie's disappearance, but eventually the mounting evidence and his conflicting statements led to a breakthrough. He was arrested and charged with the murder of Annie Lee. During the investigation, Clark's previously reported behavior, such as making inappropriate comments to female colleagues and students, came under scrutiny, suggesting that his obsession with Annie may have escalated into violence. In his statement, he explained that he had been working with Annie Lee in the Sterling Hall of Medicine lab on the morning of September 8, 2009, and that the two had a brief interaction. Clark's emotional instability and apparent jealousy of Annie's relationship with her fiancé, Jonathan Wadowski, seemed to be the catalyst for the tragic events that followed. According to Clark, he became angry after a confrontation with Annie, possibly linked to his feelings of resentment or rejection. In his confession, Clark admitted that he had snapped during this interaction. He stated that he killed Annie Lee by strangling her with his hands. The exact details of the attack were horrifying. Clark described how he then attempted to hide her body in a lab's basement where it was discovered. He kept her body there till he figures out how best to dispose the body. Clark's confession revealed that he made an attempt to erase the evidence, cleaning up the crime scene and ensuring that there were no signs of struggle that might implicate him. Despite his efforts, the forensic investigation, especially DNA evidence, ultimately exposed the truth.
A funeral is being planned for Annie Lay, the Yale University grad student who was strangled earlier this month. CBS News correspondent Bianca Solorzano is in New Haven, Connecticut with the very latest. Bianca, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Russ. As Annie Lay's family moves one step closer to saying their final goodbyes, questions still surround the motive in her murder. Annie Lay's body made the long trip home to Placerville, California this weekend, 1 week after the shocking discovery in a basement wall at the Yale lab where she worked.
The arrangements will be a private funeral mass for Annie, really a special time of pulling together for the family.
Raymond Clark III was charged with the first-degree murder of Annie Lee following his confession and subsequent arrest. The prosecution initially planned to take the case to trial, but Clark entered into a plea agreement, avoiding a possible death sentence. In 2010, Clark pleaded guilty to the charges, and as part of the plea deal, he was sentenced to 44 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The plea agreement also spared the Lowe family from a lengthy trial, but it was still a bittersweet resolution to a tragedy that had rocked their world. Annie's family, particularly her parents, expressed a mix of emotions throughout the process. While they were grateful for the conviction, they were deeply pained by the loss of their daughter who had so much potential. In statements made during the sentencing hearing, Annie's mother and father spoke about the unbearable grief they felt and how their daughter's death left an irreplaceable void in their lives. They described Annie as someone who was kind, loving, and full of promise, and her murder not only robbed them of her presence, but also of the joy she would have brought to the world. The sentence handed down to Clark, 44 years in prison, was seen as a form of justice, but it could not alleviate the deep pain and loss Annie's family would carry with them forever. Annie Lee's tragic death left an indelible mark on both her family and the broader academic community. As a promising young researcher at Yale, Annie had a bright future ahead of her in the field of pharmacology, where she had already earned admiration from her peers and professors for her hard work and intelligence. Her research focused on cancer, a cause close to her heart, and she had plans to graduate with a PhD just days before her untimely death. Annie's life, tragically cut short by a brutal act of violence, symbolized the loss of a vibrant, intelligent young woman whose potential was never realized. In the years following her death, Annie's story has not been forgotten. Her family, friends, and colleagues have continued to honor her memory by highlighting her legacy as a brilliant researcher and compassionate person. They have been involved in campaigns to promote safety in academic and research environments, pushing for stronger protections for students and faculty working in laboratory settings. Annie's case has also contributed to important conversations about campus safety, workplace violence, and the potential for jealousy and resentment to turn deadly. Her murder raised awareness about the dangers of unaddressed personal conflicts in academic spaces and led to greater attention on how institutions handle incidents of harassment, discrimination, and violence. In addition, the tragic story of Annie Lee has become a cautionary tale about the importance of paying attention to warning signs in the workplace and how something as seemingly trivial as a social media interaction, like a comment on a picture, can escalate into something far more dangerous. Ultimately, Annie's legacy is not just one of loss, but also of the lives she touched and the lessons her story continues to teach. Her family's resilience in the face of such unimaginable grief stands as a testament to her lasting impact. While she is no longer with us, Annie Lee's contributions to science and her story continue to inspire conversations about justice, safety, and the importance of cherishing every moment. Our hearts go out to Annie's family, especially her parents, fiancé, and friends, who continue to carry the weight of this loss. It's a grief no parent should ever have to bear, and no family should have to endure such a devastating end to a loved one's life. We encourage you to share your thoughts and support organizations working to prevent violence on campuses and in workplaces. Together, we can help ensure that no other family has to suffer such a heartbreaking loss. Rest in peace, Annie Lee. Your legacy lives on in the hearts of those who loved you and the lives you touched. Thank you for watching another episode of Sad Tales. Please like, share, and subscribe for more stories. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, and stay vigilant.
This suit is going to protect other women?
Yes. I speaking for my daughter Annie Lee because I don't want nobody been killing like her because she died in vain. She died for nothing. I want Yale to change the security system and to be safer for the students.
Particularly the women students, right?
Yes.